I should probably finally get around to describing the beach itself, because it wasn't just your traditional mile of sandy beach, and lit up blood red behind Alejandra and her friends. It was as if heaven and hell had collaborated on a backdrop. This was a special beach. This was the kind of beach that belonged on postcards or in Hollywood movie sets. There were no hotels or restaurants, no gift shops or convenience stores to pick up snacks. There were about 200 yards of beach, bookended on each side by 100-foot-high cliffs that extended far out into the water, about 100 yards on each side, then turned and continued along the coastline. As such, our little beach created an isolated patch of sandy coastline on a long, rocky shore. The current came strongly in one direction, from one cliff towards the other, so if you swam near one cliff and didn't go too deep, the current pushed you towards the other and you were safe for a little while. Of course, if you swam too close to the wrong cliff, the current would bash you into it, and you really didn't want to hit those rocks. The beach was mostly considered a no-swimming zone by both the locals and visitors. The others in our group would get in up to their ankles, but none of them were strong swimmers, and since there was nothing approaching a lifeguard, it was swim at your own risk. Tom and I didn't really see what the big deal was. The waves were very strong, but we had experienced that before, growing up in Southern California. The cliffs actually created a sort of funneling effect which gave the waves some extra oomph, but it was still nothing more than we had dealt with at high tide in our youths. It was strong enough current that you had to be a strong swimmer to navigate it, but it wasn't exactly a death trap. As such, Tom and I would swim regularly, taking care to stay away from the dangerous cliffs, but otherwise having an uninhibited good time. The really cool part was the impact of the waves hitting the cliffs, where the water would splash up 100 feet into the air as it made impact with the rocks. It was like nature's fireworks, except the fire was in the sky and the waves crashing constantly against the cliffs provided a steady rhythmic counterpoint to the unblinking glare of the low hovering veil of blood. I could have stood there and watched Alejandra and her friends dance forever, but we had to get checked in as such, which meant going to a guy up by the jungle edge of the beach and renting a couple tents. Alejandra had rented a hammock, which was inferior because of mosquito protection, but was cheaper, so I was hoping I might be able to coax her into my tent if things went my way. The guy who rented us the tent asked us if we wanted any weed, and of course we said yes. He looked like he was all of about 13 years old. He pulled out a large box about 2 feet square, which was full of weed. He asked us how much we wanted, and we asked for the usual 100 peso bag, which we saw he didn't weigh or measure at all, unless you count one big-ass handful as a unit of measurement. He grabbed the handful and stuck it into a paper sack. My brother asked him if he knew how to roll joints, and the kid said of course he did. He was an expert. So we asked him if he would roll all this weed for us if we would give him a good portion of it. He wasn't interested. He had all the weed he could smoke. What he wanted was to be introduced to Alejandra and her friends. Tom told him we could definitely make that happen, and the kid happily started rolling away, right there on the little card table where he did his tent hammock business. You see, not only was this an isolated beach, but this was known as a hippie beach, which means you didn't have to worry about some stuck-up local or puritanical beachgoer calling the cops on you. Everywhere you looked, people were smoking weed, usually in fat cone-shaped spliffs. There weren't many people there. It wasn't like one giant party or anything, more like a few discreet gatherings spread out around the beach, each with their own fire. We went to join our group and spent the rest of the night smoking and watching the fire dancers shimmy and shake in front of the crashing waves. The next day there was a lot of sleeping late, a lot of lying around smoking more weed, a lot of swimming for Tom and me. There was a small village about a mile back from the beach that was literally like 10 or 15 little huts that had all been built in the shanty style with either reclaimed building materials or unmilled wood, the kind of structures you might see in a Swiss Family Robinson-style domicile. All of the fences were just sticks stuck in the ground, wired together usually. Some people had goats in their yard, others had chickens. At one of these huts you could go sit in the owner's kitchen where she would cook you a dinner of locally fresh-caught fish, rice, and beans for a couple bucks. It was a long wait while she cooked, but hunger makes the best sauce, and every time we sat down at her table, we had some serious hunger sauce going. There was also the fact that this was an old Mexican grandma who knew her shit and was cooking us the most authentic Mexican food in the history of Mexican food. Other than her kitchen, which was only open in the evenings, everyone had to survive on the snacks they brought with them. So it was lots of crackers and peanut butter for breakfast and potato chips and beef jerky for lunch, all washed down with copious amounts of bottled water. There was really good body surfing as the waves were very strong, and of course we did appreciate the fact that all the Mexicans were afraid of the water, and so in their eyes we seemed to be exhibiting some level of bravery by swimming in it. So we swam and lounged and smoked all day. I got to spend some good time with Alejandra, but things seemed to have stagnated between us. She had been melancholy and had just not been feeling very sexual, which is something that I can understand. So we'd settled into more of a kind of comfortable if temporary friendship. There was sort of an understanding in place that when she felt ready to be involved with someone, that I was going to be her guy. And until that time, I would just patiently wait and be there for her as a friend. The other men in Alejandra's life, the older guy who helped her with bills sometimes and the American boyfriend she saw occasionally when he visited, were going to be pushed to the wayside. I had a lyric that went, "Every dream you don't remember adds another spark, another ember. When the glow gets bright enough for you to see, it will reveal you've been dreaming of me." That summed up how I felt. I was the man of her dreams, in case she didn't know it yet. All I had to do was stick around and give her time to figure it out. And it's not like there were other women knocking my door down, so I didn't feel bad about being put on hold while her moods sorted themselves out. The weed did a lot to ease any suffering I might be enduring, for there was weed aplenty. Still, there was a bit of cuddling on the beach, a bit of hand-holding, just enough to keep things confusing and keep my heart reeling, while not going so far as to spur me to try to push things forward romantically. We smoked a lot, shared a lot of joints, and it felt like we were building something very special. I wondered if what we had would extend past this summer, if the other men would fade into the scenery, if her poly lifestyle would be dragged towards orthodoxy by my sex appeal and kindness. I somehow believed that despite the fact that I was currently not even one of many, I believed I would work my way to being the one and only. Except I was about to have the rug pulled out from under me.